just let these people sit down. Right. Okay. Well, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Planning Committee on 13th of December. We have in front of us agenda for tonight. For those that are not au fait with what normally happens, so we've got the committee around here, we've got officers up here. I'm the chair of the committee. We are live on streamed with a little bit of delay, and we will have speakers, etc., for members of the public and applicants, etc. So, right, without further ado, any apologies for absence or substitutions? I think everyone's here. Good. Any urgent matters? No, none aware. Declarations of interest? No. Any matters considered in part private? I was going to say pirate there. No. No. Okay. Minutes of the last meeting on the 1st of November. Are they agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Right, site visit attendance. Site visit on a miserable Saturday morning, raining. So myself, Councillor Martin, Councillor Mahmood, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Elwall, Councillor Councillor Summers, Councillor Ball, and Councillor Kumar. Have I missed anyone? Or put anyone in there by mistake? No, right, okay. There we go. Right. So we have 3 applications and 2 papers to take this evening. I'm changing the order because we have speakers. So the Villiers High School will be 3rd on the agenda tonight. I'm moving the East Acton Old Common Lane Arcade up to 1st, and then the 16 Eastman Road up to 2nd on the agenda. I hope that's clear to everyone. Okay. Right, so without further ado, shall we introduce the first application, which is colloquially called the Snooker Club?
Good evening. The application relates to the demolition of a 2-storey building and construction of a 5-storey hotel, including flexible Class 1 or Class E space in the basement for hotel rooms or a snooker hall. The site is within the East Acton Neighbourhood Centre and consists of 4 commercial uses and a warehouse use to the rear. At the ground floor is an optician, a hot food takeaway, and a butcher. At the first floor is a snooker hall. The Old Oak and Wormholt Conservation Area is on the opposite side of the road within Hammersmith and Fuller. To the north are residential properties on Brassey Avenue. There is also an existing rail service access from Brassey Avenue. To the south are commercial and community uses. The site has a very high PTAL rating of 6A, meaning the site has excellent access to public transport. The proposed development would almost replicate the footprint of the existing building. The height of the building would be increased, most notably the eaves, by 4 metres. The total height of the building would be 15.5 metres. The ground floor would open out onto the public footpath with seating for a cafe, restaurant, and workspace. The original consultation process in 2022 involved the posting of 12 site notices and an advertisement in the Ealing Gazette. Following revisions to the application, there was another consultation. In total, 132 comments have been received, 131 of which object to the development. All of these comments are summarised in the committee report and briefing notes. The key concerns relate to the loss of the snooker hall and retail units, the overdevelopment of the site, the historic merits of the existing building, the impact on the character of the area and the street scene, the impact on neighbouring amenities, and increase in traffic. And just in the last hour, we've had an additional objection comment, and that's also regarding the loss of opticians. All these points have been addressed in the committee report and briefing notes. The principle of development is acceptable. The London Plan and GLA paper 88 outline the need for more visitor accommodation in London, with a focus on town centre locations and areas of good transport, public transport. Ealing Council has a target of 2,234 additional hotel rooms by 2041. Proposed development would meet this need and would be in full compliance with policy in this regard. Notably, the development would include flexible Class E space in the basement. This space has been safeguarded for the existing snooker operator should they wish to remain. This is secured via the heads of terms on page 5 of the committee report. The flexible Class E space shall be marketed at market rates determined by a qualified RIC surveyor. There would be a loss of snooker playing space if the new snooker hall came forward. However, the independent snooker needs assessment review concluded unused capacity in peak evening periods. Therefore, some loss of space is considered reasonable. The facility would be brand new and would have lift access, which the current club does not benefit from. Here are the floor plans for basement level 2. The snooker clause, if the snooker clause were activated, the snooker operator would be presented with the shell and core. That is outcome A on the screen. If the snooker clause were not activated, the -2 basement level would be put to use as hotel rooms. That is outcome B. This slide shows an indicative snooker hall layout. There is space for 14 playing tables, a bar, reception, staff facilities, toilets, and storage. The existing building was constructed in the 1930s and is in a poor condition. The proposed building would be more reflective of the material palette in the area. The proposed height and scale would be reflective of the emerging context. The mass of the building would be broken through the setbacks of the upper floors. The height and scale would not result in harm to the nearby conservation area. The building would have an open colonnade at the ground floor level. The ground floor would appear much more inviting and would consist of glazing and outward-facing benches and planting. Here you can see the elevation comparison between the existing and proposed building. This is the front elevation of the building. This is the north elevation of the building facing Brassey Avenue. Here is the rear elevation facing the access road from Brassey Avenue. And here is the south elevation facing St Aidan's Church. Here are 2 images showing the development in the street scene. The picture on the left looks north towards the development. The picture on the right looks south. The building would integrate well with the street scene, would contribute positively to the local spatial character. Here is basement level 1, which is always been hotel use. Here is the ground floor plan. Here are the upper floor plans and the roof. The first, second, and third floors are identical. All the hotel rooms can accommodate basic furnishings that a visitor would expect. The impact of the development on neighbouring amenities is acceptable. 93% of all tested windows would comply with the BRE guidelines for daylight. Any harm is limited to non-habitable spaces and bedrooms, which have a lower or no expectation of light. There would be some losses of light to 1 to 3 Brassey Avenue. However, the flank wall facing these properties would be set back to allow for a light well. This would improve sunlight exposure to gardens. The AC units and the extractors on the existing building would be removed, improving neighbouring amenities. Louvers would be installed to prevent overlooking and loss of privacy. This has also been secured by way of condition. There would be a reduction of private vehicle trips to the site and combined taxi car trips. Primary access for serving would be from the rear of the site. Tracking shows that light serving vehicles can easily come in and out in forward gear thanks to the large servicing bay. This is an improvement on the existing. A hotel of this size would require 1 disabled parking space. This will be provided either on Old Oak Common Lane or Brassey Avenue. Coach parking is not a requirement. The applicant has suggested to restrict coach parking via the Section 106. Taxis can drop off in the loading bay at the front of the site outside of the restricted hours. Larger servicing vehicles can also use the lay-by at the front of the site. Overall, the servicing and pick-up and drop-off is typical of a development of this nature. The building would be greener. There would be a site CO2 emissions reduction of about 73%. There would be an improved urban greening factor from 0 to 0.3. To conclude, this is an opportunity to retain the snooker use on the site. There is a loss of playing space, but the use would be in a brand new facility with a lift. The development is a high quality design. There would be a much improved street frontage and public realm. There would be less vehicle trips and a reduction in on-site emissions. Economic benefits include increased spending on the high street, 24 full-time jobs during construction, 40 full-time jobs during operation. Ealing would also be providing high-quality visitor accommodation to meet its borough targets for hotel rooms. And I referred members to the briefing note showing some changes to the recommendation and additional objections. The recommendation, though, is to approve subject to conditions and Section 106 terms. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. Right, okay. So we have speakers now from members of the public. We have objector Mary Watkins. Would you like to? Okay, right. Can you hear me now? Right, I'll be a bit louder then. Most people don't like me being loud, but okay, right. Okay, we have a speaker as an objector, Mary Watkins. Would you like to come forward? And you have 3 minutes. I will tell you at 30 seconds to go that you've got 30 seconds to go, and then I will stop you at 3 minutes. She is, I believe, joining us online, and she is delayed, so she is joining at 7:30. You can sit down, and you need to press the button on the mic. That's it.
All right then.
Right, when you're ready, we'll start the clock.
Okay, ready?
Okay.
Just very quickly, I had my speech, but I have to respond absolutely immediately to the snooker needs assessment done by Everton Young and independent assessment by Continuing Leisure. First of all, it identified snooker hall as a community asset. However, they did not accurately quantify the usage of the snooker hall. Over 57 hours of snooker and over 57 hours of pool are played daily in February. This is a seasonal sport and business. Those assessments were done. One was done in lockdown. The other was done in the month of June, one day. So it can't possibly compare to the actual usage. So the tables that we do need to use are of the maximum of which exist. Reducing it isn't viable. So, dear committee, I am Mary Watkins, owner of London Snooker with my 4 sons. London Snooker was my late husband's business and was started 25 years ago. I took over running it around 8 years ago. I found to my surprise I thoroughly enjoyed it. The snooker and pool community are a lovely mixed bunch. They span all generations and are made up of individuals from every class and ethnicity. At the snooker or pool table, there are no categories of human. This business provides for professionals and amateurs alike. We sponsor children and adults, one being Jamie Jones, a world snooker, champion, but he's played champions as Judd Trump just last week. We sponsored him to do that. We always invite and encourage beginners. They are our future champions. We are the last snooker club in Ealing. Any of you who might have lived here since the 1980s will have seen all the other clubs disappear. If this plan goes ahead, it is likely that there will be 0 snooker clubs left in Ealing. The possible future champions of West London will not exist. The World Championships are held in the UK because this was always the nation of snooker champions. Since the last committee meeting, where this was on the agenda, the same application has been made. However, this time it does include a snooker club in its basement. I am so glad that we were able to make a strong case previously that has come into being. My colleagues and London Snooker members were able to provide correct details, statistics and evidence. We found experienced people to give evidence in order to inform the committee and the council of the necessity of snooker provision to continue. It is our unique brand of business knowledge, style and skill that has pushed the idea of a snooker club to be provided in the new plans. We pushed that into existence. The reason that the snooker facility is in the plan is because of our experience and connections. No other provider will be able to do this. We've watched all the other clubs disappear. There must be assurances of an alternative space for London Snooker to continue in whilst the new build takes place. And there must be a lease with rent in line with our current rate. No other snooker operator will manage to create or maintain a business here. If London Snooker is not given the lease, then the provision of a snooker space and community asset disappears. Snooker in London is gone forever. If this plan is to go
Thank
ahead,
you.
which I don't want it,
Thank you.
I request that it's
Thank
a
you very
clause
much.
of suitable
Thank
alternative,
you. The committee have seen
space
your,
and building
you've
phase.
shared your speech. Thank you. You've had your time. Otherwise, I have to give the applicant more time. Okay, so we have for the applicant, Greg Smith. Again, you've got 3 minutes. I will tell you when it's 30 seconds to go, and I will attempt to stop you at 3 minutes. I will stop you at 3 minutes. Just let me know when you're ready.
Yep, ready.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. On behalf of CAS Hotels Group, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight, and we welcome the strong recommendation for approval from officers. My name is Greg Smith from Tor & Co, the planning agent for the project, and the applicant, Mr. Hanif Bimji from CAS Hotel Group, is also available to respond to any queries that members may have in relation to the existing tenancy agreements. Since the application was deferred last year, we've worked closely with officers to find a solution for the snooker hall, and the applicant is very pleased to put forward amendments to the scheme which enables the snooker use to continue. We certainly do appreciate the concern about the future of the current snooker facility, and we have worked carefully to incorporate this into the proposed scheme, which will reduce the number of hotel rooms by 15. The reprovision of the snooker use will deliver a higher quality space with improved disabled access that will complement the primary hotel use. This is a genuine offer, which allows the current tenant a first right of refusal at an independently assessed market rate. In essence, the applicant can do no more at this stage to facilitate the continued snooker use, which represents a significant benefit of the scheme. The applicant is engaged with the community and on-site traders throughout the design process since 2021. Although it is regrettable that the other retail units cannot be incorporated into the scheme, we are committed to continuing our dialogue to make sure all existing businesses will be given adequate time to find a suitable alternative premises in the local area. The principle of the hotel use in a highly sustainable town centre location is not in question. There remains a strong identified need for additional hotels within the outer London area, and in particular within Ealing, where there remains a significant shortfall. A robust delivery and servicing strategy has been prepared, and the applicant has committed to restricting coaches from accessing the site. The public benefits that will be delivered by this scheme are substantial. As detailed within your officer's report, the building's contemporary design is considered of high quality, making a positive addition to the street scene whilst respecting the existing character and setting of the local area. The flexible co-working cafe space with outdoor seating will animate the street and introduce public realm enhancements. From an economic perspective, the scheme will nearly triple the number of full-time jobs, increase local footfall with an estimated £600,000 of additional spending in the local high street annually, and circa £11 million of capital investment, creating 24 construction jobs, including local apprenticeships and work experience.
30 seconds.
Environmentally, the development has excellent energy and sustainability credentials, significantly reducing carbon emission above targets and delivering transport, biodiversity, urban greening, drainage and air quality improvements. We thank you for your time this evening, committee members, and we hope you'll be able to support the officer recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, right. We have local councillor, Councillor Crawford, who has up to 5 minutes to speak. Kate, Councillor Crawford, I will remind you at 30 seconds to go.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all again. One of the reasons I understood for the deferral was because of the lack of disabled parking, and it wasn't noted in the report, and nothing has changed. As this application proposes 8 or 9 wheelchair accessible rooms, which I very much welcome, I would expect it also to provide safe access to the hotel from the street and safe, immediate parking provision on site for the disabled, of which there is none. The London plan states that the proposals should achieve the highest standards of accessible and inclusive design, which can be entered and used safely, easily, and with dignity by the disabled, are convenient and welcoming, with no disability barriers, providing independent access without difficulty and undue effort. On-site parking provision should be limited also to operational needs, parking for the disabled people, taxis and coaches. Now, this proposal only allows for parking provision for operational needs and no on-site parking for the disabled who would like actually to access the 9 wheelchair accessible rooms with ease. Section 106 has been secured to provide additional disabled parking bays in the locality where there is already, with the local knowledge of a ward councillor, evidence of parking stress, and would mean a disabled patron having to search for a parking space and then having to steer their wheelchair to the hotel whilst holding a suitcase in some manner. That is why we have disabled parking spaces on site of the hotel, proposed hotel. The report states that disabled patrons can use the one disabled bay serving the resident, which actually is serving the resident at number 1 Brassey Avenue, which when not being used by the resident is really used by local residents needing to access the shopping parade. So it shouldn't, a new development shouldn't be taking an amenity which is available for the local people. And this is not in line with the London plan. Coaches and minibuses would have great difficulty in accessing the rear access, which would mean they would have to reverse onto Brassey Avenue, which could prove dangerous. So would have to search for parking spaces that may or may not be available in Brassey Avenue. And again, a long walk to the hotel for people experiencing mobility issues. The lay-by in front of the, which you can just see where the cars are, in front of the applicant's building, is not wide enough for vehicles, taxis, minibuses to drop off or pick up passengers in safety. Now you'll say, oh, I can see there's a car there, large car. But what if they need to open the doors to let the passengers out? They will be hitting a brick wall, or opening the car doors, they'll be coming onto the main road. Now, remember the speed.
30 seconds.
Yeah, of cyclists going past. So I ask you to reject this. It's not in line with the interest of safety and accessibility, and it does not meet the guidance of the local or London plan. And sometimes you have to compromise, but I don't think so in this case.
Thank you very much. Do we have MP?
John, we're 5 minutes early.
Yes, yeah. Well, what we can do, we can address some of the comments that have been made.
Yeah,
If you
happy.
can, Patrick, did you want to come on? No? Okay. Patrick, if you can hear me, the officer will address some of the
Yeah, happy to do that.
objections that have been made, and by that time it should be 7:30, and we can then call in the local MP.
Yeah, so just touching upon what the first speaker said there about the snooker needs assessment done by the independent third party. That was done by an independent third party for one of the deferral reasons for when the application was before committee members in 2022. That was carried out. and it just found that there was capacity in the snooker hall even at peak evening periods. So that's that point. From Councillor Kate Crawford, she speaks about the lack of disabled parking. There is disabled parking in the section 106. That can either, this is an additional space, it can either be put on Brassey Avenue or Old Oak Common Lane. From that disabled parking space, there will be step-free access straight into the hotel from the front. The reason why disabled parking was not put in the rear, and it could have been, but it wasn't, is that there's no step-free access from the rear. So that's why there's disabled parking from the front of the site in through the front entrance like every other customer, and then they're not going through the back with the servicing goods and stuff. So that's the reason why that's being done. There's no coaches going into the rear at all. The coaches are restricted by the section 106, which the applicant has agreed to, and that's in the briefing notes. And the lay-by is wide enough. The minibus, even on the site visit, you know, we parked, councillors and officers got out easily. They went up a ramp straight up to the snooker hall. There's some more pictures here, actually shows that the lay-by is wider. It's just that the paint has come off. So it is quite wide, and there's easily enough space to open a door. I think I've addressed every point.
We're not going to have a to and fro. We did park there. We got out there, and the officer's quite right. And I'm not going to go into a conversation. So please do not keep chirping in. Thank you. We are a little bit early for the MP. 3 minutes. We can start questions, and I will stop the questions when she is ready. If she's late, unfortunately. So, right, okay. Questions? Councillor Summers.
Yeah, two things. One, just a quick question about the building next to it, which, you know, as far as the street scene concerned, just looks really ugly. That it's this sort of little house next door. I mean, obviously, I'm just wondering if you knew whether the applicant had made any approaches to sort of include that in the site or not. Obviously, it's not up to us to decide. But I was curious about that. And also, on the disabled parking, can you just clarify? So are we saying that this disabled parking space would be that spot at the far end of that lay-by right next to the ramp?
No, normally I take three, but as we're kind of stalling a little bit, we'll take them in ones, if that's okay.
About the building next to it, I think we said during pre-application it would be beneficial if that building was included in any redevelopment, but it's not, and we have to assess the application as it stands, and that is, you know, leaving that building out. The disabled parking would be, it wouldn't be in the lay-by, it would be on Old Oak Common Lane, a little bit further up from the lay-by. The reason why it wouldn't be on the lay-by is that although there is a ramp there, you might just be able to see that there is a curb, and it wouldn't be good for, obviously it's fine to have a ramp, but if there's a curb there that's not dropped, then they're just not going to get over the curb, someone in a wheelchair. However, if it was on Old Oak Common or Brassey Avenue, which would be ideal, and just putting another disabled bay there, there is drop curbs around there, and that is, you know, drop curbs straight through into the hotel, step-free access with all the other customers. So that's the most ideal situation.
Yeah, just to clarify, if you're saying, I mean, Brassey Avenue is right there, so are you talking about they have to put further down and then cross Brassey Avenue?
No, they won't have to cross the road from Brassey Avenue, because the parking on Brassey Avenue is on the left-hand side of the road towards the development, so they wouldn't have to cross the road.
So, Chris,
You said that the parking space could be further down Old Oak Lane. But
No, so there is an existing disabled parking space on Brassey Avenue. that is to remain. And then there's an opportunity on Brassey Avenue to put another disabled parking space right next to that one, just in front of it. So there'll be two right next to each other. So it's not going to use an existing, there's going to be an additional disabled bay.
Can we make that a condition that is where the disabled space goes?
The way this works is that there is a provision for it to be provided. The exact position obviously needs to be agreed with highways. And also there is a consultation that needs to occur with local residents. So that's why we can't be precise, but it is adequately described in the proposed heads of terms in your application recommendation. So that's the reason. If it was helpful, I was going to suggest that the case officer actually just brought up the plan, just to for absolute clarity to sort of show where these spaces are, or propose anticipated locations for the spaces. Yeah.
And also, if the committee was so minded to say this is where we'd like it to be, that might give some sway going forward.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see this. This is the site. I'll try and zoom in actually. It's as far as I can go. So Brassey Avenue is here, and there's an existing disabled bay around here. Now, speaking to Transport Services, they said that they can include another disabled bay here. So it'd be right next to another disabled bay that's been used perfectly fine. There's another option, however, to move all of these parking spaces up by one, create another normal parking space here on Old Oak Common Lane, and convert this parking space here into a disabled parking space. Now, there'll be drop curves all over it here, so that's fine. The only issue with that one, it's probably a slight negative, is that it will have to cross one street, which is Brassey Avenue. It's not a very busy road, but that's why putting it on Brassey Avenue, this side of the development, would be the preference. But obviously it's subject to a consultation with highways and local residents. Hopefully that's clear.
Okay, right. We have the local MP, I was going to call Councillor Rupert Huck. Right Honourable, is that the right term? Online now. Rupert, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Sorry, hang on. Can you hear me now?
We can, faintly.
Wait, how do I put my camera on? Camera.
I'm not an IT
Sorry.
expert, but usually that button that says camera.
Okay, can I just sit somewhere 1 second that I can balance my iPad? And my apologies, I'm in another meeting, but yeah, can you hear or see me?
Okay, give a few seconds, settle down.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks ever so much. So you're in Percival, it looks like. Okay, is that any better?
Yeah, just, we'll give you a few seconds, Rupert,
Yeah.
it's fine. Just
Thank you. That's very
sit
kind.
down.
Thanks.
get comfortable.
Yeah, no, I've literally come out of another meeting, but I'm here now. Yeah. Okay, the signal is not great in this building either, but yeah.
We can hear you. I think
Fantastic.
the audience can hear you as well. Yeah, I think we
Good.
can hear you. So,
Thank you.
and we can see you.
And I'm all yours from now on. I finished my other thing, so.
So
I can tune into
when
it.
you're ready, you'll have
Yeah.
up to, and I stress up to 5 minutes to speak. I will remind you at 30 seconds to go.
Thank you.
That you have 30 seconds to go, and I will stop you at 5 minutes, as anyone else I would. Okay. So let me know when you're ready, and we'll start the clock.
What a deja vu. This application was objected to by me in August 2022, and with the developer trying to sneak it in with no change, their words, I can't support it today. I speak on behalf of two MPs, Andy Slaughter too. He and Hammersmith and Fulham Council, which this site borders literally the other side of the road, have objected now twice to this application. Deficiencies that they point out are harm to the historic Old Oak and Wormholt conservation area with height, volume and massing. It is at odds with the government scrutin commission on design quality standards. It's not even been through a design review panel. Zero response here from TfL on highways impact. No traffic management of taxis, coaches, all those kind of things that a hotel normally brings. Old Oak Common is a major artery, and the scant, non-existent information here on building works management. And we remember in North Acton, HS2 did similar. It's chaos there. Now a major link road has been cut off. And at a Zoom yesterday, from the PR company of the developer, we were told that there's nothing in planning policy that stops anything that I raised, that negotiations can take place after the inevitable permission will be granted and the committee rubber stamps it. It felt like a gotcha moment because they've already bought the land. We know that they're not a charity. When all these things were pointed out about the small businesses that are being lost, the much loved community facility of London Snooker, the answer was it's not their problem. After years of experiencing planners on a charm offensive, most charmless ever presentation I've ever seen. And they claim that Mary gets first right of refusal for an earmarked snooker only space. Theoretically, yes, but clearly too costly for the existing club because there's no assurances otherwise it will be at market rate. Temporary discretion is what is being relied on here. They've said that it's was 129 guest rooms going to 114, but if she can't afford that, it reverts back. So they're going through the motions. Andy Slaughter, MP, he's an ex-council leader. He talks of the small businesses. You know, the lenses I've got in my eyes came from I Spy Opticians, and another colleague of mine at London Councils says that it's odd, no reference to loss of retail capacity. And also the usual setting out of the MP's objections and the mitigations for each one is missing from this report. The developers' PR told me nothing has changed from the original application, so there's no need to go through a big presentation with me. No consideration of the 8,000 London Snooker Club members. A parliamentary colleague I mentioned this to today said, you mean the one that's got Russian billiards? People go to that from miles and miles around. So it is famous. The applicant's own snooker needs assessment, not independent, they ordered it, says everything is fine. Why demolition in the first place when we have a climate emergency and public policy says that this should be a last resort when 24% of current emissions come from the embodied carbon released from such projects? We're supposed to retrofit rather than this wanton destruction. And the biodiversity net gain, it's a requirement of the Environment Act. It's laughable here. It says a green, what's it called? Roof. So, you know, a few blades of grass. It's not proven that 10% that you leave nature in a better state than when you came to it is proven in this. In fact, quite the opposite. Of the 75,000 constituents I represent, nobody has said that they want a hotel here. In fact, the opposite, given that the halls of residence at North Acton and even hotels in the Oxford Road have been repurposed for other things, dispersal asylum accommodation. So often these things turn it, and we haven't heard which hotel chain is taking this. So I say that you know, very few applications to this committee make it on TV. This was on ITV News. It's such a loved facility. We've also got the butchers, the kebab shop. You know, what about small business and the lifeblood of our high streets? And the application for asset of community value has not been heard by Ealing Council. At least we could have a conclusion to that. It's been on their desk since June.
Okay, that's 5 minutes. Thank you.
It's nearly Christmas.
No,
I say don't vote for this turkey.
Thank you. Right, thank you. We're going back to questions now. Unless you want to address anything of that.
Yes, I'd like to address some points raised there.
Sorry, can I just hold on? Rupert, did you hear the presentation by the officer earlier?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
I asked
so
one from the developer yesterday. They said
okay, so that's the Chalmers presentation you were talking about. Because I was going to pick you up if you were talking about the officer here.
No, it's not the developer, it's it's Canada, who's a PR company. They
Okay,
weren't
all
able
right.
to answer any things I asked them. They said there's
Okay.
no need for them to present. I thought I was.
Point cleared up. Okay, thank you. Patrick,
Yeah, just on the harm to the conservation area, the existing building is not included in the character assessments of the Old Oak and Wormholt Conservation Area. It's not a tall building and it's not going to be viewed from the majority of the conservation area. There's already tall buildings in Ealing that can be seen in this conservation area. From this conservation area, they have a much bigger impact than this would. Just in turn, touching as well on the design review panel, there is no requirement to take this application to the design review panel because it's not referable to the Mayor of London and it's not a tall building. The design was not raised as a concern in the last committee meeting, my members as well, so it wasn't a reason for deferral. I think it was mentioned again, coaches. There's no traffic management of coaches. That's untrue. Coaches are restricted by the Section 106 agreement. I refer members to the briefing note. There was another point about there's no mitigation during construction. That's not true. There's a construction management
There's no
plan.
mitigations for the points I raised.
Rupert, please don't interrupt.
He's misquoting me, that's all.
Can you?
There is mitigation for when the building is being constructed. There's a construction management plan in the conditions. There was a point about that the rent would be too costly for the snooker hall operator. In the heads of terms, the rent will be marketed by a RICS qualified surveyor. It can't get any more reasonable than that, and rent really isn't something that's a planning matter or consideration. In this case, we thought that rent should be controlled by a RICS surveyor for the sake of, we didn't want any party to frustrate the process, and we thought it was the fairest method. The loss of retail, this isn't a primary shopping frontage. It's the retail units unfortunately don't have any protection in planning policy. Just again on demolition, the site is there's a reduction in CO2 emissions, about 73%, which is a very large reduction, and there's urban greening as well, from 0 to 0.3. So, you know, this is a green building. And just as well, touching upon on the point about small businesses, and this development will actually breathe life into the high street in it of itself. It's going to result in more money being spent in the high street with visitors and guests from the hotel, as well as potentially returning one of the uses, the snooker hall. So I think that's worth pointing out too. I think that's everything.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Right, we shall carry on with questions. I've got Councillor Ball next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Two questions. First is, do we have a feel for how much the market rate for the basement would be compared to what the club is paying for the current accommodation? And the second question is, if they did end up going with the alternative use, would there be, for i.e. bedrooms in -2, would there be a light well down to there, or would the bedrooms be, you know, completely without any natural light?
I saw a light well there on the plans, so I'm presuming you're nodding. So
yes,
yes,
there is a
the
light
answer.
well.
Yeah. Sorry, if you're going to hold, I'll take a few questions. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Rice. I just did that because that was quite a quick one. Sorry, Councillor Ball. Councillor Rice.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Because I'm just looking at the heads of terms, and so it does look like if there's a failure within the 6-month negotiation period, that there may not be a provider for a snooker facility. Now, I'm just wondering, in that particular event, because you know, I'm just wondering about the independent investigation and the independent work that was done here. Did they look into whether or not local pubs could actually cater for snooker facilities? What I'm just thinking in terms of is the fact that we do need to improve our offer when it comes to pubs, and ensure that they're much the for securing their business environment. And we're just thinking as well is that if we did more to actually build up our pubs in this eventuality, it might actually do an awful lot more for the high street, because that seems to be a very key point here, is what's going into the high street. And we're looking at other retail that's available in the area. And if we have a stronger high street, then maybe there's more facility for that retail to open elsewhere. But I'm just wondering really, what can we do in terms of the offer for our pubs, in terms of them providing snooker facilities and becoming a stronger business opportunity for our pubs in order to remain open? Thank you.
Okay, Patrick, if you want to come in there, and then I've got three more people queued up for questions.
Yeah, just in relation to the market rate, the current lease that the snooker hall is on has expired. The lease is rates at the moment from 2003. So the RICS surveyor who looks at the basement and markets it, it's very likely that the rent will go up. However, you know, this is as fair as we can put it in the heads of terms, and leases and rents are not really a material planning consideration. But it would probably be likely that the rent would go up. Just touching upon the comment about local pubs, I don't think the developer has looked at moving or providing more snooker tables or pool tables, American pool tables in local clubs. You can't really replicate the facility. That's why the developer is trying to create a facility on site, because that's the best use and the best playing space, and it's where people already go. So that's why they're trying to put it there. And yeah, I think that covers the points.
Okay, Councillor Martin.
So I've got a couple of questions. One of them relates to the disabled bedrooms. And it says in the report that if the snooker facility goes ahead in the basement, that there will be a reduction in disabled bedrooms. I'm just wondering why we couldn't have simply put more in somewhere else.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, I'll try. I mean, it is the committee that needs to hear me, but yeah, okay. So why have we taken, excuse me, why have we taken out the disabled bedrooms and not sort of just find space for them somewhere else? That's the first question. The second question relates to something that's been said in the briefing note by the police, which was to do with the compatibility of having the snooker facility downstairs and bedrooms upstairs, and the possible, you know, people moving up the building in an unauthorized capacity. I just wonder if I'm sure they're certainly seen them, lifts that are facilitated by the same sort of card that you have for your bedroom, and whether or not we can not make that a condition, for example, should the two go together, and maybe we could solve that problem. Thanks.
Hold that, Patrick, for now. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. There's sort of been quite a rapprochement going on here, particularly with Hammersmith and Fulham. Could you help me in understanding how much they're consulted and what bodies are consulted and how they fed back to you? That would be helpful, given it is actually across the road from that borough.
Okay, the last one that I can see at the moment is Councillor Kumar. Anyone else? Right, okay. And that's all right, okay. Two more. We'll bring you in after this one, Patrick, and there's two more questions after. All right, okay, Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and speak louder. I wanted to ask about the consultation in Brassey Avenue, which you've already addressed, but I think that that's still quite a narrow road, and if that doesn't work out after consultation, Old Oak Common Lane is a very, very busy road, especially when schools break up and there's a lot of traffic already. I'd also like to know a little bit more about the travel plan where it says coaches will be prevented from arriving. I mean, passengers or people will be prevented from arriving on coaches. I'm not sure that I quite agree with that. And the demolition, construction traffic, I think that will cause a lot of congestion. And my other thing is about the snooker hall in the basement. It's still not terribly certain, but it's already been reduced from 21, is it, to 14, from what I've read. And I think it's a much loved facility. That is what has come out from both site visits that I made. And that's also the understanding from reading the papers. So I think that more consideration needs to be given to that and the businesses, because I heard
Can you just do questions at the moment?
Yeah, so
rather than speeches. We
No.
can have the debate afterwards, but just stick to questions and the officer will come back to you.
okay, so I want to know what help would be given to businesses that are going to be dislocated.
Right, Patrick, do you want to take those three or well, several questions, but three councillors?
I'll try to remember them. I think I've
Yep.
got them all. Okay, disabled bedrooms, first of all. If the snooker hall came forward, it would dip slightly, very slightly beneath the 10% requirement for disabled bedrooms. It would go down to 9.64%. Now, that is justified in our opinion, because we would end up with is a snooker hall with brilliant accessibility with a lift. So we thought that was justified. And there was still 9.64 disabled bedrooms. And if it reverts back to a hotel at any point in the future, we would acquire the 10% requirement. So just talking about the Metropolitan Police comment, they did highlight some concerns. However, what they did say was that the development could still achieve the secure by design standard. There could be, for example, sections of the hotel where only a person with a key card for their room can get in and things like that. So fob accesses and things like that. Memberships, for example, can only access down into the basement. So it can still achieve all those standards.
Can I just come back? My point was, can we make it a condition so we know that it's safe?
Yeah, in terms of how the lift is operated and many buildings are like that and now.
There is a condition which looks at to secure this the secure by design accreditation. So that's already imposed. So it can be done. And I can assure you the safety aspects of how the two uses operate on site were discussed. It can be achieved, and we have the condition that should secure the details of that.
Okay, right, sorry.
Yeah.
So Councillor Kelly's next.
Yeah.
How much consultation with Hammersmith and Fulham?
Yeah, so we really don't we get the comments from neighbouring boroughs. It's not usually a kind of format in where we start to kind of have a big conversation with them. We take on board their comments, we assess them, and if we agree with them, that's great. If we don't, then we highlight why we don't agree with them. And in this case, we don't think there's an impact on the conservation area on the other side of the road, for the reason that the existing building is in quite poor condition, and it's not in any of the character assessments of the conservation area. It's important as well to remember that it's not, this building isn't in a conservation area, it's just near a conservation area. So there isn't a long, conversation about it. It's just about taking on board those comments, and if we disagree, making sure that we say why we don't agree with the comment.
I was just going to add that obviously we consult with neighbouring boroughs where a scheme, it could have an impact on the borough or the residents. So there is a formal process, and that's quite a typical way of ensuring that we notify people who are outside of our borough boundary. So that's what's actually happened in this particular case. And we have obviously reported the comments that we've received, including obviously the local MP for the neighbouring borough too.
Councillor Kelly, did you?
Yeah, so I don't want to be clear about, so Hammersmith and Fulham have made comments on what the streetscape not being in keeping with the Wormholt Conservation Area. Would that be the only material comment they've made?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the street scene. I would say the impact from inside their conservation area. Because the street scene's really kind of old Common Lane, whereas the conservation area starts kind of a little bit further away. So that's what their objection was. Our view is that the building can only really be seen from very small areas of the conservation area. And there's already tall buildings around the conservation area that can be seen from quite some distance. So that was our view.
Councillor Coombs, several questions. Coaches,
Yes.
demolition, traffic, businesses.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so there was a comment, I think, about Brassey Avenue being quite narrow. It's really important to remember the only vehicles that are going up Brassey Avenue are light servicing vehicles. They can turn round easily, enter and exit in forward gear. This is a really typical service arrangement for a development of this side. And it's actually an improvement because what's happening is the developer's delivering this large servicing bay, which allows a light servicing vehicle to come in forward gear, a short little reverse, and forward gear straight back out. So it's quite, a really nice, easy approach for a driver. So this is perfectly reasonable in our view. I think you said you didn't agree with something about the coaches. I just want to reiterate that the coaches are restricted by the Section 106 agreement. There's no coach bookings expected here. The applicant has agreed to restrict them. This is the type of, there's no event space, there's no conferencing rooms at this hotel. There's just no coaches and it's restricted by the Section 106 agreement. And I think, was there another comment about
demolition, traffic during demolition, which is?
Yes, demolition. That would be, we've got a construction management plan that will protect neighbouring amenities. During construction, for example, if there's large vehicles entering or exiting the site, there will be banksmen, things like that, to prevent delays or traffic building up, and it's unsafe. That's kind of things that construction management plan will include, and that has been conditioned. So before any work start on site, we would need to see that, and our transport officers, highway officers will have to look at it and agree with it. And if it's not, then we either refuse it and the development can't start, or we ask for amendments until we're happy with it. So there'll be a lot of eyes on that document. Just talking as well about the snooker hall being reduced. Again, the third party independent snooker needs assessment review did say that there was capacity at peak evening periods during that assessment. So reduction in snooker playing space is considered reasonable. And it's also really important to remember that the snooker hall is Class E. It's not Class F. It's not a designated sporting facility. Having said that, the applicant is willing to provide it back on site. So we just think that the reduction is acceptable. Was there any other questions?
I think there was something around businesses and lost businesses and have we talked to them?
The businesses are all Class E. They're not part of the primary shopping frontage. They're not protected. The commercial reality is that in the existing building, all of the leases are up by 2025. So, that's the commercial reality. We can't really consider it, but because it's not a planning consideration, but they're not protected uses in planning policy. so there's nothing we can do, no steps or mitigation that we can put in place to keep them or retain them.
Okay, Chair, there was just the one
What-
on, may I?
Go on, you may, yeah.
On the disabled parking, should after consultation and highways consultation, should it not be possible to have a bay, one bay, you say, an additional bay to the existing one, then you would probably look at Old Oak Common Lane, which is a very busy road, and probably, you know, it'd be further down. So just your view on that one.
Well, the preference is to have it on Brassey Avenue, but it is up for consultation with neighbours. But the transport services have said that there's room for a bay, either on Old Oak Common Lane or Brassey Avenue. The preference would be on Brassey Avenue, and there's already one there, so it makes sense to have it there.
Thank you. Right, two more councillors indicate for questions, and then I'm going to stop questions and we'll go into debate. Okay, so Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just clarify, we've had some requests made of us tonight in respect of the snooker hall. The first being to protect it, but would I be right? I've read in the report, I think, that the use could be transferred to another use such as retail, regardless of us, without need to come back to the local planning authority. So if that's the case, it seems that that's out of our jurisdiction. We couldn't possibly protect the snooker use. Is that correct? Secondly, the rent to protect the rent level currently at, we've already heard that we've aimed at something that's fairer with the RICS surveyor, so I think you've covered that point. But we've also been asked to find an alternative site while the building works goes on. Can I just clarify whether that would be in our power to do that as well, whether it falls outside the jurisdiction of the planning committee? Thank you.
Lastly, but no means least, Councillor Mahmood.
Sure, my question was about the coaches, and it's been already answered.
I think we've talked about coaches enough tonight, but yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So that is correct. The existing snooker hall is Class E, which is the same as the opticians below it, and the butcher and the hot food takeaway. So technically that snooker hall in planning terms can change into a day nursery or a restaurant or another butcher. So it's not protected. And we wouldn't have any say over that whatsoever because it's in the same use class. So it's not protected sporting facility, like say something like a football pitch would be. So that is the kind of planning reality of it. So the fact that it's been provided at all is a good thing. In terms of the rent, obviously, yes, that's controlled by RICS, which we think is the fairest method. The alternative site, this was mentioned a few times, and the developers has kept something on the table for the existing snooker operator. There is a unilateral agreement on the table between the developer and the snooker operator. It's not something that we could have included in the Section 106 because it doesn't meet the Section 106 requirements. However, it is in the briefing note, and it's £15,000 for storage or fit out or even temporary relocation to somewhere while the building works goes on. It's not something that we can put in the Section 106 though, but it is on the table.
So it's a business transaction between the two.
It's a private matter between the developer and the existing snooker operator.
Okay. Right. Okay. Right. That's the end of questions. I'm looking for anyone indicating to join in a debate, give your opinions or etc. Right. Councillor Ball, then Councillor Sam.
Right. Thanks, Chair. I mean, it's very clear that London Snooker is a fantastic community asset, and I think we should do everything we can to ensure that it's able to continue. My first concern is that the fallback plan of more hotel rooms, if we approve what's before us today, then that's already approved, and there's no incentive for the applicant to negotiate a new snooker hall in the basement. And my second concern is that the market rent determined by the surveyor might be entirely outside the means of London Snooker. I mean, we've been told we can't do any more than this, but in the approved town hall Masscraft scheme, there was a guarantee of a maximum amount the higher charges to community groups could increase by, for a period. So there was a the planning application did get into the nitty-gritty of the costs, so that it didn't become unviable on that basis. So yeah, I'd suggest that we amend the proposed heads of terms to point 2 to protect the rent level, within say 10% of the current level, so that they can't request something impossible. So yeah, and I think turning away from that, we should also be mindful of the fact that the Hammersmith and Fulham have objected on heritage grounds, and that it's very unusual for us to have an MP objecting, but we've got 2 MPs objecting to this one on both sides of the border. So I do think that carries some weight. So in summary, I think we should reject it unless we can amend it to make the new snooker use really viable. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Summers.
Yeah, firstly, I'm going to have to disagree with Councillor Ball. I think what I'm going to say is probably going to be quite unpalatable and sort of uncomfortable for some people hearing. But at the end of the day, a lot of what has been raised by the objector and by the MP, is very valid, concerns about the community, about this much loved snooker hall and the businesses below it, the opticians, etc. But at the end of the day, as the planning laws work at this present time, there may be changes under a new government, but at the present time, we cannot tell the developer what to do. They now own the building, or they're planning to buy the building. They then put in an application and they say, this is what we want to do. They did not have to do anything about the snooker hall. They could have just said, this is what we're building. It's going to be fully hotel rooms. But I'm not going to say out of the goodness of their heart, but they've sort of, maybe wanted to buy a little bit of good PR in the community, and they are offering to make it snooker. But we cannot force them to give a sort of special discount rate to the snooker hall. I think in the town hall case, that was a building owned by the council. So there may have been, the council may have acted differently when it was the developer in that case, but or part of the developer. But so at the end of the day, there are no real planning objections I see to this. As I've said many times before, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If anyone seriously believes that is an attractive building that adds to the conservation area, I'm confused, because personally I think it's a very dated building, especially the back of it and the view from the houses. It's an ugly building that's long past its sell-by date. The new building looks perfectly, presentable. I think it will actually, in the long term, residents will realise it's an improvement to the area, and it's certainly improving, employment prospects and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm minded to approve.
Right, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Summers has sort of talked about this briefly, but I think he's quite right to say that the developer has shown some goodwill here. Another developer could have just served notice, evicted their snooker club, and come with a fresh application without any thought to it. It would be like a legacy. So I understand it's the current operator may feel like it's not enough, But again, it's not a planning concern for us to reject this application. So I think it's quite positive they've done as much as they have. And it's not perfect, but this is a development and they want to progress with it. So there was some talk about Hammersmith and Fulham. It was interesting to know that it wasn't so much about density or parking or coaches, all these items that have come up a lot tonight. Theirs was it didn't fit in with their view, their vista of the Wormholt and Old Oak Common Conservation Area. It is a stark difference. If you come out of East Acton Station and the quite cottagey buildings, and you know, all named after bishops and what have you, it's got a lot of heritage. But then you come to the top of the road, and East Acton Lane has always been quite a challenging streetscape to look at. The St. Aidan's of Lindisfarne Church, 1960s architecture that got slotted in, as it did in many other places in London. I actually think this building will improve the streetscape. I think the offer of a hotel there will bring gainful employment and bring some enhancement to the area. And all being well, we'll also have a snooker offer, which will not be the same as the snooker offer that's there now. That's unfortunate, but I think with the right goodwill from all the parties, we'll have a snooker offer there in years to come. So I'm minded to grant this application.
Okay, I can't see any other indications. Right, okay, well, like most applications that come in front of us, it's a bit of a compromise, and I think that Councillor Kelly and Councillor Summers have summed up what the compromises are here tonight, and I think that should we have been minded to vote against this, we wouldn't secure a snooker club. We'd probably lose the snooker club. If you're the applicant, you could just leave it and evict the snooker club and come back here in a year's time, just have a whatever they want to put in there, really, in a sense. And no, you cannot speak, sir. No, sir, you cannot speak. No, it's not for members of the public to speak. Okay, thank you very much. No, yeah, look, what part of this do you not understand? You are not allowed to speak. Okay, thank you. Right. Look, this is for the committee to debate, not you, sir. Okay. Look, no, I don't think we should hear your point of view. No, we're not putting it to the vote. I'm telling you that no members of the public speak during. You are a member of the public as far as this committee is concerned. I'm not debating with you, sir. You carry on. I'm going to get security. Carry on, and I will get security. No, you will get no minutes on the floor, no seconds on the floor. Can you call security if this gentleman carries on talking? Right. You finished? Right. So where I was going was basically this is a compromise. We've got a compromise, and I think we'll have to vote on that compromise in front of us now. So I'm going to the vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against? 2. For clarity, any abstentions? Okay, right. So that is passed. Thank you. No. Call security, please. Look, can you ask this gentleman to leave, please? I'll give it a minute. Right, okay. Committee shall move on to the next application, which is 16 Eastman Road. Who's presenting? Zana. Would you like to present, please? Thank you. We're struggling with technical problems.
We are, but we'll just send, you can send that to me then. I'll share.
Okay, we'll try and fix them. Okay, are you ready, Zana?
Yep,
To
ready.
go? Right, committee? Thank you. Right,
Good evening, everyone. This planning application seeks to demolish the existing industrial building to provide a new industrial unit with an ancillary office, a car park, and landscaping. The application site is within a locally significant industrial site with an area of approximately 2.04 hectares. Wait for you. Yep. The current site is occupied by Freshways for milk production, comprise a use class B2 and B8. The only access to the site is by Eastman Road, a cul-de-sac off the Vale. The service yard is located to the western side of the building, and there are car parking spaces along the southern boundary. There are other industrial and commercial premises to the northeast and west of the site, Southwest Park and residential properties to the south. The principle of this development is wholly supported by both the London Plan and Ealing's Development Management Plan. As outlined in Ealing's draft local plan E6, the proposed uses are conforming uses with high employment and economic value that will be prioritized on industrial locations. In addition to this, the draft local plan has introduced a new requirement on the provision of affordable workspace. The proposed building will have a total gross internal area of 9,860 square meters. The proposal is a large development that significantly increases the bulk, scale, and massing on the site in comparison to the existing situation. However, Given the site's industrial location and the proposed design, the development represents an optimization of the site for industrial type uses. The color scheme for the development uses neutral colors of gray and white with a typical cladding material uses. Representations were received from 38 properties on Hatfield Road and Alexandra Road. Residents have objected to the following grounds as shown on screen. Overall, it's not considered that proposal will result in a significant impact to properties on Hatfield Road in terms of overbearing, sense of enclosure, and loss of light. The existing development is a dairy company which has been complained by surrounding residents in relation to noise resulted by plants and operational vehicle movements along the southern boundary. These issues are also subject to 2 ongoing enforcement notices. The predicted noise impact for the proposed development would be low. Given all the plants would be contained within the building, activities of operational vehicles will be limited within the service yard only. In addition, an acoustic screening will be installed around the service yard to further mitigate the operational noise. The proposal is a highly sustainable development which will exceed requirements outlined in the London plan. The existing tree belts on the southern boundary will be retained. Landscaping and trees will be intermittently arranged across the site, as well as the proposed car parking area, which will enhance the biodiversity throughout the site. The proposed development will provide 58 car parking spaces. Given the night shift nature of the development, the proposed number of car parking spaces are considered acceptable and will be in line with London plan policies. The proposed means of vehicular and pedestrian access to and from the site will remain via Eastman Road. However, the proposals seek to improve the overall quality and appearance of Eastman Road and user experience, with a number of new measurements to be introduced. To conclude, the proposal will be an improvement compared to the existing development. It will provide benefits to the local economy and improve biodiversity that is in line with the council plan. Therefore, it's recommended for approval, subject to conditions and completion of a Section 106 agreement. Sorry. Members, I would also like to draw your attention to the briefing notes in relation to the reduction of the car parking. Since the publication of the briefing notes, another communication has been received on the lack of consultation on the amendments of the car parking. Thank you.
Okay, right. I'm going to now call the objector, Dr. Jane Kershaw. You've got 3 minutes, and I will tell you at 30 seconds that you have 30 seconds to go, and then we will stop at 3 minutes. Just let me know when you're ready. You've got the mic on and it's working, etc.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. I live on Alexandra Road. The residents of Alexandra and Hatfield Road are not against development per se, but the current proposal significantly downgrades the existing amenity of residents. We are opposed on 3 main grounds. Number 1, noise. This is a long-standing issue at the site, so it's really important that the right restrictions are in place. And the major issue here is that the current assessments were done in relation to existing site noise. However, this site has an extremely poor record of noise pollution. There is a litany of complaints and enforcement action stretching back years. So to say that there would be an improvement on current levels is inappropriate and indeed misleading. Current noise levels systematically breach guidelines and previous planning conditions and are therefore an inadequate baseline. There are no planned restrictions on HGVs, forklift, diesel run refrigeration units. The developers want the site to operate 24/7, including bank holidays, therefore doubling the existing vehicle noise. In a residential neighborhood, we feel that is inappropriate. Nighttime operation introduces industrial noise that will have a significant detrimental impact on the amenity of residents of Hatfield and Alexandra Roads. According to the London plan, homes are places of quiet, but we will have idling diesel run trucks or vehicle reversing alarms going on all night long, meters from our homes, which would have a detrimental impact on our quality of life. We have significant concerns about the future of Southfield Park. This is number 2, which is a much loved green space vital to the community. Today, people go to relax and decompress. It won't be the case with a massive looming warehouse. The developers noted moderate adverse effects from the park. According to Ealing Council, Southfield is a priority park. You have a policy to protect open spaces, but the current development undermines the quality and viability of Southfield. Finally, the building is massive. A Part 6, Part 8-storey building, 50% taller than the current ones, 5 meters closer to the boundary with Hatfield Road. The developers think this is appropriate for a dense urban space, but we are not a dense urban space. We are low, we are 2-storey residential units. It will be overbearing, restricting daylight and sunlight levels, our outlook and privacy. This will have a significant detrimental impact on our amenity and our ability to enjoy private amenity space. The developers think the proposed height is the minimum to satisfy market demands, but there is already a viable business there. The GLA say that 10 to 13 meters is more appropriate.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so we've got James Shepherd speaking for the applicant. Again, I will give you a warning at 30 seconds out, and we will stop at 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to check, my microphone's working. Thank you. Thank you, Chair and committee members, for your time this evening. My name is James Shepherd, Planning Director at CBRE, representing Oxenwood Real Estate. I'd first like to express our gratitude to the lead planning officer, all those statutory and community consultees that were involved in helping to shape this proposal. The current building is obsolete, dilapidated, and in need of sustainable redevelopment. This proposal will serve to support the Council's 2023 carbon neutral strategy, setting a new standard for this type of development in the borough, whilst being a catalyst for further sustainable investment at a local and borough level. The development will bring a number of new employment opportunities and an economic boost to the local area. The flexible building will consist of nearly 10,000 square metres, including industrial, office, mezzanine space suitable for a variety of tenants. The scheme will deliver between 176 and 320 gross full-time jobs during operation, 49 during construction, and several apprenticeship opportunities for young people. The proposals will create a better environment for our neighbours. Residents have long flagged issues with the existing operations on site, citing problems with noise, odour pollution, frequent disruptive HGV traffic. Our proposals will have fewer HGV movements on site, whilst the building itself has been designed to allow for loading and unloading to take place inside the building rather than in the yards as per the existing operation. The proposed orientation of the building, with servicing located away from the southern site boundary, provides an effective acoustic barrier to the site-sensitive neighbours. The proposal has also incorporated acoustic fencing around the service yard where it is most effective, and a robust landscaping strategy will provide effective visual screening of the development. The scheme will be a net zero carbon all-electric development targeting EPC A+, BREEAM Excellent. We are providing solar panelled roofs, EV charging, LED lighting, improved ventilation, substantial enhancements to urban greening, and significant reductions to CO2. We will not only retain all the existing trees on site, but also plant additional trees and landscaping, bringing biodiversity and ecological benefit. We have also reduced the proposed number of car parking spaces from 70 to 58 against an existing number of 104. As illustrated in the officer's planning report, the development has been designed to be sensitive to the local area, protect residential amenity. Indeed, the daylight sunlight report concludes the overall effects are considered acceptable. The vast majority of residents is not affected. Active consultation and engagement has resulted in changes, thank you, that have improved the scheme. These include reductions in building height and parking, retention enhancement of trees and landscaping, introduction of external staff amenity space, architectural improvements to Eastman Road. In addition, significant Section 106 contributions have been agreed with officers. In closing, we trust members support these proposals so the substantial benefits can be realised as quickly as possible. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Just within the 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay, is there anything that you want to address? We haven't got any other speak. No. Anything you want to address there, Zena?
Yeah, I think I'd like to address about the noise issue. So we think this is an improvement from the existing situation. So in terms of HGV noises, there will be a barrier to restrict HGV go down to the southern boundary. So we'll just limit to private cars, which is a strict pattern. So it will be better. It will be a betterment than the existing situation. And also, because it's an industrial location, so 24/7 is quite a common in such location. And also this development is designed to be a highly sustainable development. So all the HGV base will have electric points. So this is what they plan to do in the future. And in terms of the impact to the Southfield Parks, that was the concern that's been raised. However, it will just be a small section of the park will be impacted by developments, and then the bottom, the lower part of the building will be screened by the existing plants. So given its urban locations and economic benefits from the development, it's not considered that the overall openness of the park is impacted significantly. In terms of heights that mentioned at the end of the objection, the GLA did recommend it for proposal like that the ceiling height is minimum 10 to 13 meters. So the proposal is 12.5 to 40 meters, which is appropriate development. And in terms of scale and the design, the proposal have been through the community design review panel, and the community design review panel and the panels both think is appropriate design and scale of such developments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Right, I'm opening up for questions. Councillor Mahmood was first, Councillor Ball next. Keep your hands up, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. By looking at the level of the operations going on that huge industrial estate and looking at the exit and entrance, it looks like very narrow. So I'm just wondering what can be done in the new development to improve that exit and entrance.
Them in batches, if that's all right, Sandra. So just no, hold on to that thought. Councillor Ball.
Yeah, so in the air quality assessment, so I mean, this is a point that's raised in the consultation responses on page 151, but I'm not, there is an answer to that there, but I'd like a little bit more clarification. I mean, essentially the point is the air quality assessment is saying that there will be a reduction, a significant reduction in HGV movements, even though it's a flexible use. So how do we know that there would be a reduction rather than the same or an increase, considering that it is a flexible B2, they could kind of do almost anything with it?
Okay, I've got 4 indicated. You happy to run through all 4 questions, as long as they're not multiple questions, and we'll see what they are. Okay, Councillor Rice next.
I've got 2 questions, so is that going to be problematic? I'll try.
No, carry on.
Okay, I'll try to be succinct about it. I'm just interested looking at the London Plan Policy 3 and just looking at what we're trying to justify in terms of the affordable workspace being a barrier to start-up businesses and small businesses looking to expand. Because I'm just trying to really visualize how this new development is going to help all those small businesses that just want to have space, because it looks to me like the existing premises is probably better equipped for that, because this one here just looks like a very large site rather than something that could be individual premises for different tenants, which is as the applicant has described it, being there for different tenants. I want to try and understand that better. And also I will apologise for not being at the site visit, but what I'm just actually interested in is that I think we'll be expecting people to come to work by public transport where possible. I mean, how safe is it to walk from the public transport through the industrial area actually to get to the premises itself? Because I know sometimes it can feel a little bit difficult when you're walking through industrial estates in terms of where there might be lorries around and just how easy it might be and how people might be happy to come in by public transport. Thank you.
I I think the answer to the first question might help the answer to the last question, if I maybe say bold. Zana, I've got Councillor Summers. Have you got multiple questions or? I know. All right. Okay. I'll Councillor Martin, I'll bring you in next. Zana, would you like to address those, please?
Sure. To answer the question of the access, so we do quite a lot of discussion on improving access. So obviously the site is a constrained site. So TfL gave some good comments, and our transport officer also gave some good comments. So as it's a very constrained site, so what they can do is to improve the user experience. So for example, so they will introduce clear signage and then also open up the site a little bit. So the pedestrian can cyclist and go from one way. And also in terms of safe traveling, safe access, there's a bus stop just right at the entrance of Eastman Road. So in that sense, so people get off and drop off with just a 5 minutes walk onto Eastman Road rather than walk through the whole industrial area. And obviously the Acton Central Centre is just across the park, so or you can walk from residential roads. So that's a lot of improvement from the existing situation. In terms of air quality, we do have questions on the trip rates because it is the reduction. However, by looking at the existing developments, it's an unusual site because it's for milk production, so it's a lot higher than similar users. But then we do have conditions to monitor so we have a travel plan, and then we have another condition to monitor the trip rates. So if the trip rates exceed the prediction, we could ask for offsetting payments to mitigate air quality. Yep. And also for affordable workspace, obviously this is a new this is a London plan requirement, but it's also introduced by the draft local plan to share. So the site is large, but then it's a constrained site. So the design is for single occupancy. If it's rather you introduce more occupants or you what's that say? Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I just lost it. Yes. So that scheme have the option to do on-site provision or off-site provision. Because of the requirement for this scheme is quite low, so we do request it off-site contribution. So we put in a pot for the council to provide affordable workspace elsewhere. It's similar principle as affordable housing. Hope that's clear.
So is that clear? From the site visit, we drove in from the Uxbridge Road really, and some of the buildings at the front are being demolished under this application. So I think it wasn't that, you know, I know what you mean by kind of scary going around corners into industrial estates. It didn't feel like that to me on Saturday, but that's just me personally. So I hope that helps. Councillor Martin, I think you may have a host of questions, it sounds like.
Just a few. So my first sort of queries are to do with the vehicle movements on site. And bear in mind, I'm afraid I'm not very good on West East, etc. But when we were there, I could see where the parking was that was nearest to the housing. So if you can clarify what you're saying. So are we saying there will be no vehicle movements in those areas? Or are we talking about just commercial vehicles being restricted? And in there, it talks about some hours of operation for some of this, which was between 7 AM and 6 PM, Monday to Saturday, and not at all on Sundays. So what parts of the site does that relate to? And does Sundays also include bank holidays? By the same sort of, on the same principle that nothing's allowed. So just get a bit of clarity on that. When we were on site, it definitely looked like it could benefit from much improved signage, especially things like behaviour notices about people's behaviour, but also walkways, etc. I'm hoping that that's going to be improved as part of this. So my final area was to do with the noise. So I see that we've put in some conditions to make sure that the noise doesn't exceed what our expectations are. How's that enforced? One of the things that will happen probably is as the equipment gets older, it might get less efficient and it might get noisier. And it talks in here about something about surrounding sensitivity receptors. I'm not sure if that was meant to be a thing, that we've got receptors there, or that was just a general comment about how noise might be perceived in the area. So perhaps you could clarify if we've actually got some monitoring on site of the noise. Thanks.
Right, I've got one more person who wants to question, so if you can just hold those questions for a second. Councillor Kuma, have you got a host of questions?
No,
What?
no,
Right, okay,
no.
just checking.
Yeah, no, I don't have a host of questions, and part of what I was going to ask was based, has already been mentioned. My concern was around the area of the car park at the back, with close proximity to the houses. I know that there's a reduction, but what can be done about that, if anything?
Right, I think that kind of married those two questions, but about signage, etc. So let's see what. Okay.
Yep. So in terms of improvement of access, so obviously they introduce new signage, and also they will do resurfacing of the site and adding a bit more soft landscaping to the site. And there's a staff breakout area which they don't have it at the moment. The sensitive receptor, I meant the residents in the area. So that southern boundary will prohibit the HGV going down that road and by a barrier, and then around the service yard is acoustic fencing, so it's not machines. So there is a condition to make sure that acoustic fencing is maintained. So yeah, that's a question. And in terms of vehicle movement and yeah, so at the moment we don't restrict the use on Sunday or public holiday because of those measurements, acoustic fencing, and also no operational vehicles down to the southern boundary. So all the operational movement is closer to the industrial area, which is where all the movements are. In terms of parking, and the initial proposal proposed 70 spaces, and that's now reduced to 58. So they do have a predicted shift pattern at night. So it's not 58 cars parking there and another 58 comes. So it's like half when the car comes, and then the other half will leave the site. So it's not necessary the car park is always fully occupied. I hope that answers the question.
On the hours of operation, I wasn't quite clear what you were saying there. Were you saying that formerly there was no restrictions, and now there are restrictions, and what those restrictions are? I think that's Councillor Martin's. Was it does bank holidays include Sundays, etc.? That was kind of I think that was your question.
Yeah. So let me clarify that condition previously. So that condition was to restrict operational vehicles go down to the southern boundary rather than the whole site. So because now they have measurement in play to stop the vehicle coming down to the southern boundary. So we don't think that condition is necessary because they won't coming down and they won't have enough space to maneuver. So that's pretty clear. The vehicles won't come down to the southern boundary.
I'm not sure you've addressed Councillor Martin because she's looking quizzical at you. I'd let the officer. Well, we've got to use the officer because, God.
No, so for example, the staff coming to park, are they going to be parking down by the houses? And if they are we saying that could be 24/7?
Yes.
And are we also saying that they could be chatting to each other and saying hi, blah, 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 all that noise that could transfer to the neighbours? Because that to me seems, I think we need something to ensure that that just doesn't happen. Because it's not just about really heavy vehicles. Any vehicles can wake you up at night, and people chatting, if they're quite close to you, are going to wake you up at night. So, I mean, that I think would be a concern if there's not a restriction on that.
Alex, do you
I
want
was just going to come in just to sort of give you some assurance that there is a condition which has been recommended, which deals with delivery and operations management plan, and it lists all sorts of things, which includes things like details of a quiet delivery strategy and things like that. So I think it can be encompassed in there. It's primarily looking at the operations of the industrial use, but I think it should also include references to the workers. So that would set out all of those things. That would also capture things like signage and all the things that you've been talking about to mitigate any potential impacts on any sensitive receptors who are the nearby residents. The car parking, as we saw on site, for workers, etc., is on the southern boundary of the site, which is obviously closest to the residents. The clear difference with the existing situation versus the proposed is that will only remain, that the southern parts will remain just purely for the car parking and not for the operational of the end occupier, because that's obviously concentrated to the sort of northern part of the site. So that's a clear difference. But I think that condition, perhaps with a little bit of finessing, we can probably capture that. Is that all right?
Yeah, and I think that perhaps you can do that in consultation with myself and Vice Chair, because I think that's quite key to this, to make it better than it is at the moment, because the cars are backing up onto those back garden fences, for want of a better term. And I know there's the planting there, but it's not full. It's not a complete plant across there, and there's no signage to tell people to be quiet at night and whatever, you don't rev your cars, that sort of thing. So yeah, it would be beneficial to make it better than what it is now. Is there anything else, Councillor Martin, from your questions? Councillor Kumar, did you get your question answered about what was it? No, didn't make a note of yours, actually. I've got receptors was the last note I've got.
No, a bit, because what you've just mentioned about the area not being, there weren't any trees towards that end where, but that's the busiest area from what I found out at the site visit. And there was signage, there was a passage and a signage saying delivery vehicles here. So that was the area that was quite open, and you could actually see literally, into the houses. And that was the area where there was more parking. So my concern is actually those, the houses, the close proximity and the noise that would generate and affect,
Okay, we're saying the same thing, I think, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. Right, I see no more indications for questions, so I'm going to open it up for debate from the committee. Councillor Summers.
Sorry, apologies. I think I might have got a cold at the site visit. This is raining a lot. Yeah, this is obviously quite a difficult site because there's a history of enforcement action with the current, Freshways dairies, and they've sort of bad blood with the residents, if you can put it that way, where, they've obviously been repeatedly making noise and there've been complaints and haven't been dealt with or whatever. And there's obviously suspicions from the residents that, this will be a new building, but part of the problem is we don't actually know who's going to be the tenants of the new building. We asked the site visit, and the developer was quite cagey. I get the feeling it's not going to be Freshways. It's going to be, maybe they've already had sort of discussions with other companies or whatever about what sort of business it's going to be. It could be a very, very quiet, media or there's some sort of business like that. Or it could be a very noisy industrial process. We don't know, and we have to judge it just what we're listening to. But I think, all the, again, a bit like the last site, I think in the long term, I think the residents will actually see an improvement in their environment. Okay, the building will be slightly taller than the current one, but it's going to be the way it's sited, the way the lorries come in and out, and the doors will go down, they will load inside, which happens at a lot of places. And the baffles, the noise barriers, all that, and the banning of lorries into the southern section. I think ultimately it's going to be an improvement, and I see no real planning grounds for objecting, and I'm minded to support it.
Councillor Ball, next.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's an unusual location because it is an industrial location, but it's right next to residential properties with quite short gardens and a park. I've got no objection in principle to replacement, especially as has already been mentioned, the current use has been very problematic over many years. And there are some positive aspects, including clearly better design, relocating the loading bays further from residents, acoustic screening, and also the trip rate offsetting payment. But I am still concerned that it does seem inappropriate to increase the scale and proximity to residents of the buildings and to have this 24/7, 365 days a year use. And I mean, I welcome anything that can be done to reduce the noise from staff car movements overnight, which would be the closest issue to the residents. But I'm still, I still have my concerns about this one.
Okay, so Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. As we all know that, and Councillor Summer mentioned that there are many years ongoing conflict and ongoing problem between the local residents and the Freshways in terms of the noise and other stuff. So, in my opinion, this new development will address all these issues, and I think what I'm assuming there will be a noise protected walls, and there will be a much reduced noise. And what I can see the beneficial for the local community is enlarged in terms of apprenticeship scheme. There is a huge contribution in terms of apprenticeship scheme, and that's, as we all know, that this is a designated employment area, and it's one of the largest employer in the borough is Freshways as well. So there will be a employment opportunity in the future for the local residents as well. And when I see the plan, if you see that there is a overall additional landscaping, and still a net biodiversity gain as well. And so I'm very much minded to support that application, Chair. And there is one more thing which is beneficial for co-working spaces, but that's unfortunately that is not on site. But I think there will be a contribution for off-site contribution for co-working spaces. So I will be minded to support that application, Chair.
Okay, I don't see anyone else indicated. Oh, Councillor Kumar.
Just a quick one. I mean, I think the development would be an improvement on the current structure there. But my main concern still remains the close proximity of the car parking area to the resident houses. If I was staying there, I would feel there would be no respite, because you're looking at 365 days a year, 24/7. So unless that is actually looked into, I think I'll still have to decide.
You'll have to decide very quickly. Yeah, on that matter, sorry, Councillor Melton.
I'm just, I mean, really going to say a similar point, really. I mean, I think it's a site that's in need of redevelopment, and this looks like a good scheme, but I think that car park, it may not be commercial vehicles, but you should never underestimate how much noise staff can make. And subject to that being resolved, then I'm mindful to support it. Yeah.
Okay. With that in mind, and taking that condition and flushing that condition out, and making it more suitable for the workers' car parking. And Councillor Martin, I did include you as the Vice Chair as well, so you'll be included in that. And I hope the committee will let us take that one away and make the wording better, and anything that we can do to make the screening of noise, for want of a better term, in that area.
Just on that, I mean, I think the condition is quite helpful to address a number of these points. However, just to make it absolutely crystal clear that it also applies to all sorts of, both types of parking and operation. That was the point that I wanted to make, but I think it deals with being quiet and sensitive to the neighbours, etc. So yeah, I will make sure that's right in the constitution. Thanks.
No, and notwithstanding that, there's existing car parking there for more cars than proposed at the moment. So you can clarify, Susanna.
So just clarify the car parking. At the moment, it's about 103 car parking spaces all along the southern boundary. So this scheme will actually move most of the parking to the more northern of the site in front of the building. So maybe less than half actually on the southern boundary. So that's a reduction of the existing situation.
Perhaps it might be beneficial if we saw that on the plan where you're talking about, because northern, southern, eastern, and western even gets lost on me. So if we get that up here, that would be great. So the committee can see what you're saying, really.
Yeah.
You can stand and point.
Use the microphone.
Not that one.
Sorry, you can stand and point if you wish.
So at the moment they're all here. So now mostly are here.
Yeah. Okay. Let me paraphrase what you're saying. Go back and point, please. Sorry. Sorry.
So at the moment,
So all the parking is where you're pointing at the moment. Now, the parking will move to where? Some there still.
There will be reduction from existing.
In what proportion, roughly, would that?
About 100 here.
There's 100 there now.
And then now here is like 58 in total.
So 58 in total going forward. Therefore, how much proportion is round the corner, from want of a better term? So hold on a second.
Well, the 8 is in the top corner, so we know that it's just 100 down the bottom. Sorry, 50 down the bottom. So it looks like half and half, isn't it?
Yeah, I think here is about 20-ish, and then half.
So right, okay, half and half,
So
roughly.
100
So we are reducing it quite significantly from what it is existing, but we do want to tidy up a little bit better with some conditions.
Yeah, and the existing proposals also enhance the landscaping along that southern edge. So we saw on site that it was quite open, and you could see into gardens, and the walls in particular were quite low. So there are those enhancements in addition to the condition things that we've just talked about as well.
Okay, I hope that's clear for the committee. So I don't see anyone else indicating to speak, so I'm going to go to the votes. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Okay, all those against? Abstentions? Okay, right. So therefore that application is passed. With the proviso, of course, that we look at that. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Dana. Next, and I realise the time is going, so we are going to back onto the top of the agenda with Villiers High School. Marilee, give it 20 seconds and we'll start. Okay, if you want to have a conversation, do you want to take it outside? No, these two at the back. Okay, right. Villiers High School. There you go.
Yeah. Good evening, Chair, councillors, and everyone listening in. I'll be presenting tonight's item on the agenda for the Villiers High School, a construction of a 3-story building for education use on the southeastern part of the site, a rooftop teaching terrace and a wildlife meadow. The application site, Villiers High School, is located along Boyd Avenue in Southall. The site is not located within a conservation area and it's located within the Southall Opportunity Area. The site measures 2.06 hectares in extent and is the main with the main entrance along Boyd Avenue. Currently, 1,731 pupils are enrolled at the school. There are 3 existing blocks on the site. The first block, Block B01, is located along Boyd Avenue and comprised of a 2-story building, which is the main high school. Block B02 is located to the center of the site and comprised of a 4-story teaching block. This building would be demolished as part of the school's master plan, but does not form part of this application. Block B03 is located along the western side of the site and comprised of a 1-story dining hall, music and sports hall with changing facilities. Lastly, the existing playing field is located towards the southern portion of the site. The proposed development comprised of a 3-story building in an L shape to be located along the southeastern parts of the site. The new building would have a gross internal floor area of 4,725 square meters and would increase the pupil capacity from 1,731 to 1,853 pupils. The buildings would offer a combination of general and specialist teaching classrooms, staff offices, and a rooftop teaching area with a wildlife meadow. No public representations were received during the statutory consultation period. Sport England and the Council's sport and leisure teams raised concerns regarding the loss of playing fields. The loss of playing fields would be mitigated through the upgrading of 2 courts located towards the east of the school. After careful consideration, it is considered that the upgrading of these courts would provide better quality sport facilities for both pupils and the community. The recommended conditions from other consultees are included within the officer's report. The layout of the proposed development have been carefully considered to ensure site optimization whilst protecting the neighbouring amenity. The proposed development would be entirely constructed on land earmarked for educational use. The nearest neighbouring amenity is located to the south of the application site, with several outbuildings located in the rear gardens. It is considered that relatively low overshadowing would occur onto the neighbouring amenity, and the overshadowing would largely be over the rear gardens only. The proposed building would be located approximately 9.46 meters from the site boundary and approximately 23 meters from the dwelling houses located to the south. As previously stated, the proposed building would be partially located on the existing playing field, reducing the playing field by approximately 1,425 square meters. To mitigate the loss of the playing field, 2 existing sport courts located to the east of the application site would be upgraded with 3G AGPs, which would be sport lit. Sport England indicated although the conversion of these courts into grass surface would not meet planning policy. However, the creation of these courts would be considered to broadly meet E4 and E5 policies of the playing field policy exceptions. The recommended conditions by Sport England have been included. Also in the new courts would be larger in size than the existing loss of the sport field. Then in terms of trees, 5 trees along Villiers Road would be removed to provide temporary access to the site, as well as to make allowance for the required substation. These trees are of low quality, and 5 new trees would be planted on the site to mitigate the loss and the removal of these trees. All other matters, including highways and transport, energy and sustainability, air quality, and flood risk and drainage, have been assessed and found acceptable. Where impacts have been identified, appropriate mitigation has been provided, either through the design approach, conditions of consent, or secured through the unilateral undertaking. I draw the committee's attention to the briefing note, which clarifies some amendments to the report. For openness and transparency, all heads and terms will be registered as a local land charge. Additional community sports development plan and community use of the 2 courts would be included within the existing condition 17. To conclude the proposed development would provide modern teaching facilities with high quality design that is sensitive to the streetscape and its setting within a residential neighborhood. On balance, the proposal is considered acceptable, compliant with national and local planning policies, and it's recommended that the planning committee grant consent subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlies. Okay, right, we have no speakers on this, so straight into questions. I have a question. We talked about this on Saturday at the site visit about multi-use of tennis court, a multi-games area. I'm presuming from those pictures you cannot do that. Have a tennis court and what is colloquially called a Muga in the same area. Is that correct?
Within the park, there is a dedicated court for 2 tennis courts.
Yes.
So they will remain dedicated for tennis use. These courts will be multi-use games areas, so other uses. There is consultation happening between the school as well as parks to look at the need. And then based on that need, there will be agreement in terms of what the uses will be for these specific courts. And the community use agreement between the school and parks will stipulate clearly who's responsible, what will be the use and the operations and so forth.
Okay, so how do they determine what the use is going to be? Is it sort of consultation with the wider residents as well, or
I think it's something that's managed by the parks team, and in terms of how those courts are actually used
now,
and that's what they will look at to see if they need to how they will be accessed for other different types of sports. So I understand the point is around who's going to make sure that the particular court is available for that use, and that will be managed by the parks team. And as I understand it, that is an arrangement that is already in place for the existing situation, and of course that can mean that the use of those courts can be altered. But what we're seeking through this particular application is that is enhanced via the applicant from the school to ensure that happens. So there will be another agreement in place, and I think it's something that needs to be sort of monitored by the parks team through their operating agreement.
The community use agreement.
So
it can be done, but we don't have all the precise details.
So it can be multiple.
It can be, yeah.
But you'd have to take out, someone would have to take out and manage to take in the tennis.
It would have to be managed, so
you take it out for a season or
or
the winter or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I think I know what.
Can I just, yeah, sorry.
Councillor Martin, then Councillor Mahmood.
No, just clarifying what the officer said. So are we saying that there are still some tennis courts, even though we've taken some of them away, but there's still some remaining, is that right? Is that what
So
you're
the
saying?
tennis courts will remain unchanged. They won't be removed.
Can you just point to them on the presentation?
So this court over here has two existing tennis courts, which will be dedicated only for tennis, and we're not, it's not.
Changed.
Right, I think that's answered the question. Thank you. Councillor Mahmood.
Just on that point, on that procedure or that measure, the sports England is, are they, what is their view on that?
Sports, our own sports team. Sorry, I don't understand the question.
So ask it again. Sorry, Councillor Mahmood.
Just what is their view on terms of sports, England sports? Yeah. So what is their view on that?
They are supportive of this option to upgrade the existing, well, the two courts.
They will be supporting that.
They are supportive of this.
I think that's in the report, isn't it?
Yes, that is.
Okay. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I must admit, I was reading this report and I just started thinking to myself, wouldn't it be lovely if there were lots of solar panels on top of the building? But then lo and behold, I get to page 26, I see a photograph, well, basically a reconstruction of what would be a photograph of all the solar panels on there. So can I just ask about what exactly is the plan in terms of dealing with that energy? Because of course, energy will still be produced during the school holidays. Do we know if there's going to be some kind of community energy arrangement in place in order to deal with that, to deal with the electricity that's produced and how this might be distributed throughout further within the community, or is it just going to be stored?
Or would
Yeah.
so I just add to that, or would it just be sold back to the grid, basically?
Yes, yeah, this one.
That's a very technical question. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. Our energy officer has made a comment and he's very supportive of their energy strategy in terms of the reduction and, you know, what they are providing in terms of the technical aspects.
If you don't know, it's fine. Okay, don't worry. It's, yeah, we can clear it up afterwards, but I don't think it's going to make you vote one way or the other. The answer to that. Yeah. Okay. Right. Anyone else? You're on fire tonight, Councillor Kumar. Come on.
Now, mine's on the trees, which we couldn't get to see, but I understand from the report and I've read what it says. But what and I know it's in the officer's response, the recommendation, but I thought that the trees were not, did not have a TPO order on them, but correct me if I'm wrong. It says, as per a planting plan, it recommends a tree protection plan to be conditioned.
Good, go on, Marilise. I think.
Okay, so thank you for that question, Councillor Kumar. So yeah, the trees that will be removed is not subject to a TPO. The condition that's been imposed is to make sure that the trees that will remain on site are suitably protected whilst construction operation is taking place.
Okay, I think questions have been suitably answered. I'll go into debate if the committee wants to debate, or I'll go straight to the vote if you want to indicate that way. Councillor Ball, you want to speak?
Just very briefly, yeah. I mean, I think it's unfortunate that there is building on the playing field, but I think in the circumstances, the arrangement that's been made to upgrade the facilities in the park, you know, makes sense. It mitigates that. The question I asked on the site visit was whether there would still be some community use of that, and the answer was yes. And I mean, you can see here in community use agreement would cover that. So as long as it's not being you know, removed from any public access as part of the park, then I think it's fine and minded to approve it.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you just said. Thank you, Councillor Ball. Anyone else would like to contribute to the debate, or if I see some shaking of heads, I'll go straight to the vote. So, right, I will go straight to the vote. Okay, all those in favour, please indicate. Don't think you need to count.
I think that's unanimous.
Just for clarity, all those against? Any abstentions? Right. Correct. Right, and we've got two papers to go through tonight. One is the Planning Services Performance Report. You've all read it and digested, and you've seen how well we're doing as a borough. And we should commend the planning department for that. Any questions on this report? So we just note the report, don't we? That's all the committee does. Alex, would you like to say anything, or?
I was going to say, if the format is acceptable to you, then we will obviously follow the same format next time we report, and perhaps it would be a good opportunity to do that at the end of this performance year. So we could look at that later on, perhaps in April next year. And we may want to also add in some enforcement information as well, which we can extract. We need, if we had a bit more time, we would have been able to do that, but that's fine.
Okay, and yes, I'll open up to committee and those that are not here, if they've got any areas they'd like to see in here, or any particular points they'd like to see in this report, please suggest them between now and the end of the, well, no, February would be probably, because otherwise we won't get it into the report. But anyway, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you for the report. It just to make sort of wider comments about the planning committee, and it in some ways its name sort of isn't necessarily representative of what it does. It in the main, apart from tonight, it sits to hear major applications, except that that's not implied necessarily in the title. So in a sense, to go through this report properly, probably should take an additional meeting which doesn't include any applications. That's just a
okay. I'll take that away. I'll take that away.
Thank you.
I know how you love additional meetings in your calendar, and we'll take that away, and we'll see what we can and cannot do within the municipal calendar. Okay. Oh well, you did. You did, and I didn't hear anyone second you, so I'm keeping it like that. So. It sounded to me like you did, but anyway, okay, right. Okay, is that noted? The report? Thank you. I'll move on. I'll turn that off. I'll move on to the protocol for public speaking at planning committees. There's two sides to this. One is members of the public. One is for councillors. I think it's tweaked rather than completely overhauled. I don't know if there's any comments that the committee would like to make. I know Councillor Martin wants to make a comment.
I was only going to make a suggestion, which it would be good to also provide some guidance to speakers about maybe what's relevant, what's not relevant in planning terms, because often they make a speech that doesn't really fall into what we really need to hear from them. So it'd be good if we could put some guidance on, perhaps on the website.
I think that falls for both members of the public and councillors and members of parliament, yeah, even. So whoever speaks in front of the committee, it might be wise to just say, please, the guidance is to look around planning issues. But you can say what you like. I can't stop people saying what they want, but this is some guidance, and we can take that away. Jack.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I guess there's two ways to go about that. We could look at putting a paragraph in the protocol, or we could look more widely at kind of the information we have about a protocol on the website and maybe in planning letters as well, which could be, I think, a better place for that. Yeah, comments are noted.
I suppose you can point them back to it once they register to speak and say, have you taken that into account? And that would be more looked more favourable by the committee. Councillor Raza.
It's more about preventing what happened today, because people don't seem to understand what's happening here. They think it's just a bit of a chat between us and them, and that they can sort of say, hey, just a minute, I have something to say. So perhaps something a bit wider through our engagement team about what planning committee does and what the public can, how the public can engage with us. Because I think that is quite what, I mean, from all the years that I've been on planning, there's been several of those where people feel that they can have that banter and don't seem to understand what it is that's going on here. So an education stroke engagement type piece might be quite helpful, maybe even something in around dealing or something that's a bit more mainstream for people to be able to understand.
Again, I think perhaps adding that to the protocol as well on the web. Councillor Meady hasn't spoken, so she can go first.
Sorry, maybe a suggestion that a code of conduct could go on there on how they should behave. So that they don't, so that way, if it's out there, then, if you're calling security, they already agreed to it by being here because they've read the code of conduct.
Yeah, I suppose in some respects that's a wider, for all council meetings, whether it be planning, council, committees. Yeah, so Jack, I'll bring you in, but lastly, Councillor Kelly. Oh, sorry, Alice wants to speak as well. So everyone wants to speak. Go on.
Very briefly, just to say that I think if you put lots of stuff in the protocol, then speakers might be inadvertently breaching that. I think it would be better placed on our public web pages where people can peruse that.
I'm going to bring Alex next.
Sorry, I thought some of those ideas are really good, but maybe it's something that should be incorporated into the, there's a section of your agenda, which is welcome to the planning committee. And maybe that could be sharpened up with a little bit more information about how to conduct, how the meetings should be run. And it's, that would probably be a good place to have it because it's before you start the agenda. So that could be a useful thing to look at.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, it's a particular challenge in explaining to members of the public, because they are members of the public, that it's a meeting that's held in public, but it's not a public debate. And I think that's something that needs to be reinforced at the start all the time. I'm fortunate enough that the meetings I chair are held online, so we can hit the mute button. And we've had to, exit people from the room. It's not what we want to do, but it's that thing at the start where they should understand that it's held in public, but it's not a public debate.
Yeah, and maybe I should put that in the opening sentences at the meeting, and we'll think about that going forward. Councillor Ball.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to what's in front of us, I mean, it is a very minor tweak, but I'd just like to comment on a minor part of the minor tweak. So at paragraph 3.7, you've got the proposed changes, the very last sentence, and so most of it is about pecuniary interest, and I think absolutely that's absolutely right that the councillor shouldn't have any shouldn't be in the room where there's anything where they have pecuniary interest. But it's the very last sentence. It is recommended that where councillors wish to have their views considered in their capacity as a member of the public, they should do so through a representative. I'm just slightly wondering what's behind that, because I can see, like, so. I mean, I live in the ward I represent, but say a councillor who lives in a different ward, they might have a view about something that's in the area they live. It's not close enough to be any sort of pecuniary interest. Seems to me that wouldn't be improper for them to express a view on that. But I don't know what's the thinking behind adding that sentence.
So that sentence hasn't changed, I don't think, has it, Jack?
It has.
So it has, right? Because go on, Jack.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ball. So the intention with that paragraph is to stop councillors who have a pecuniary interest and in their capacity as a member of the public might want to speak at the planning committee, although they have that pecuniary interest. And for that reason, we've included that councillors should seek a representative in that case. Happy to look at that wording, just bring that up now, but.
So I think I misunderstood it to mean any time a councillor wishes to speak in the capacity as a member of the public. So maybe it could be clarified a little bit just to say that it's only.
But you're never a member of the public. You're a councillor. We had this with Councillor Young many times when he tried to step off the committee and say, I'm a member of the public now. I think you might have even been there, Councillor Ball, which he was ruled out of order. So you're always a councillor for the term that you serve. You can't flip between being a councillor and a member of the public, unfortunately. That's correct, is it? That's my understanding. And bring a legal opinion in because I might be wrong. Sorry.
I think the idea is to make sure that individuals that happen to be councillors aren't sort of treated any less fairly in terms of wanting to make a planning comment than any other member of the public, and that's why there's that distinction there.
I think it can get very muddled, the councillor member of the public scenario. I can speak from my own experience. It gets muddled because if you actually happen to put your own planning permission in, you are barred from actually coming to the meeting and speaking, etc. So and you are treated unfairly, in my view, because you're a councillor. So, but that's the way it is, and that's the way it was decided at that time. Yes, go on, Jeff.
Just to clarify, in the protocol itself, the wording is if a councillor has a pecuniary interest in an application and they are entitled to speak under the planning committee's public speaking protocol, they shall nominate a representative to speak on their behalf or feed their views in to a third party spokesperson pursuant to the public speaking protocol. So I would think that the wording is slightly clearer in the protocol.
Okay, with that in mind, is this agreed? Is this voted on? Is this? It is. Okay, so we are going to the vote. All those in favour? Right. Thank you very much. I think that was a set of relieved hands that went up there at the time of the evening. Thank you very much. Thank you to the officers for bearing up in front of scrutiny tonight. And thank you. When is the next committee? 24th of Jan. Right. Okay. What after that is?